Hello, everyone. Welcome back. You're listening to the Framing Podcast. I'm your host, Ricardo McRae, and today in the warm seat, we have the one and only Amanda Parris. She is a host, columnist, and playwright, and is currently the host on CBC Exhibitionists, as well as on CBC Radio, Marvins Room. She has done 101,000 other things. She's had her work featured at the Rock Paper Sisters Festival, Peace of Mind. In the past, she's been the co-founder of Lost Lyrics and the former managing director of the Remix Project, among 101 other thousand things, all of which you'll be able to find in the show notes. But we welcome Amanda Parris to the Framing Podcast today.
Thank you. Excited to be here.
Awesome. So I'll start where I always start with everyone. Where were you born?
London, England.
London. And how many brothers and sisters do you have?
I have no brothers and sisters on my mom's side.
Okay.
Yeah, and I was raised by my mom. On my dad's side, I have 4 brothers and sisters, but I've never met 3 of them. And one of them, the one that I have met, lives in Venezuela. And I don't speak Spanish, and she speaks very little English. So our communication was minimal. Yeah, but she's awesome. We're Facebook friends. Cool. So I have some siblings, but I really consider myself an only child because I grew up as an only child.
Yeah. It's this world we live in today of blended families. And
yeah,
I know my dad's been remarried 3 times. My wife's, it's just like Christmas gets insane with every holiday. It's like, man, it's this whirlwind tour of visits and all this stuff that happens. But really want to talk to you about creativity today. In watching you over the years and the things that you're doing, just about every single project that you take on has a creative element to it. Why do you think that is?
Well, I think long before I cared to admit it, I have been in love with art, and the creating of art has taken me a while to accept that I love doing that too. I think it takes a certain amount of courage to be an artist who creates work, and it took me a while to find that courage. But I've always loved being around art, consuming art, sharing art, and I have been lucky enough to be in spaces filled with creative people, a lot of whom don't get the sort of attention that I think that they deserve. Mm-hmm. And so very early on, I wanted to help create spaces where that incredible talent and work could be shared. And I just keep doing that. Like, a lot of my projects are not necessarily planned well in advance. It might just be something that comes up and I'm like, this should be known, or this should be shared, or this needs to
exist.
It needs to exist in the world, exactly. And so that drives a lot of what I do. And I think, just creativity to me is not something like that I have to think about. It's just something that is a part, even in the organizing that I was doing, in any sort of policy work that I was at. I was like, can we do these meetings in a bit more of a
Let's get Sharpies. Let's write on the walls.
Can we do multicolors on those bullet points? So it's a part of how I've always learned. I was a huge book nerd when I was a kid, and I love novels, and I would always read them aloud and use different voices for the characters, and act out different scenarios based on some of the storylines. And it's just been part of who I am for as long as I can remember.
I use the same sort of thing when I'm in meetings with clients or anything like that. I'm always like whipping on an iPad, and I'm like drawing on a paper app and would project it on a wall, and it blows people away. And it also, at the same time, when they get to see their work or their words visualized, it really creates it in their business in a different way for them. And they're like, I've never saw my company like this before. And it's like interesting how creativity woven into, you're talking about writing grants and corporate meetings, and everybody goes for the black and white bullet points. I'm like, just add color to your favorite one.
Jazz it up a little bit.
See what happens. It's like the power of adding creativity to those types of things in those unusual places really makes a difference. Tell me about a time where you added that and it completely shifted or made an impact in what was going on.
I guess the best way to talk about it wouldn't be like a one scenario, but over a process of time becoming an educator. So I kind of stumbled into the world of education through Lost Lyrics. It also, again, wasn't something that I had planned to do. Like I hadn't gone to high school thinking I really want to be a teacher or an educator. But I ended up getting a part-time job teaching an after-school program and just fell in love with the young people that I was around. And they were so smart and funny and charismatic and just like kept me on my toes all the time. These were all middle school students.
Oh, they would do it.
And and I just wanted to keep them interested. The great thing about kids is they're really honest. Like if they're bored, they will let you know that they're bored. If they're not impressed, they will let you know. And if they love something, they also let you know, right? So it was a really clear gauge of how well I was doing. And I started to realize very quickly that the more creative that I could be in my lesson plans, the more engaging I was able to make the concepts. So a lot of what I wanted to bring to the students that I was teaching was the stuff that I was learning in university. University was a huge eye-opening experience for me. I was privileged enough to take classes that taught me about myself.
Which university did you go to?
I went to York University.
Okay. Toronto.
And I in my first year I had my first Black teacher. So I never had a Black teacher in elementary, middle, or high school. And my first Black teacher was Dr. Andrea Davis, and she wasn't just a Black woman. She was a brilliant, engaging Black woman who was teaching this class that changed my entire life. And so when I got the opportunity to also be an educator, I wanted my classroom to feel like that. And I drew a lot of what I was learning in university, or I used a lot of what I was learning in university as my inspiration for what I wanted to teach these kids, but they're not in university, they're 11 years old. So how do I make these topics, concepts, themes accessible for them? Right. And that forced a level of creativity to the work that I was doing. I couldn't give them an essay written by an academic. I had to, translate it. So when I wanted to teach them about the history of Marie-Joseph Angelique, for example, because I was so inspired reading Dr. Afula's Coupe, The Hanging of Angelique, I tried to translate the trial transcripts into a little theater play that we could reenact, So it was, and the kids would let me know if it worked or not. They'd be like, that was hella boring. Or they'd be like, that was really good. And so I'm so thankful for those students. They really forced me to recognize the possibilities of process, of trying things out and failing and picking yourself back up again and getting better. So I think that would be one of the best examples. And, you have a group of young people who learn in all different ways. And if you don't want anyone to be lying on their desk falling asleep, you try to create multiple inroads for those people to be engaged. And so if it's the shy kid who doesn't like to speak aloud, maybe that theatrical play wasn't the best way for them to participate. Can we think of another way for them to engage this? So those years of developing curricula, of like trying to be engaging for all of these young people, taught me invaluable tools about just being creative with the way that I present my messaging, period.
And how does that translate to the work that you're doing now at CBC on The Exhibitionist or on Radio 1?
Well, I think regardless of where I'm doing my work, I always think about my work in the context of being a storyteller. Mm-hmm. And that's something that I learned from one of my mentors, DeBee Young. So thinking about my work as a storyteller and now having the privilege of accessing these incredible platforms that have large audiences, I try to think about how it is that I can tell this story in a way that fits the parameters of that platform, but also makes it accessible for an audience that might not regularly check out this particular story or this particular platform or this particular platform. So I'm lucky enough to have multiple jobs at the CBC, so I'm not locked into any one space. Right. I write a weekly column. I host a radio show and I host a television show. The television show is very much a team effort. Yeah. There are multiple producers that are a part of it, and because it's in the Department of CBC Arts, it's not difficult to be creative. Everybody on the team is creative in some way, shape, or form, and our whole platform is about sharing the work of artists. So my biggest challenge in that context is my script writing for the show and making sure that I can be as engaging as possible in presenting the work of these awesome people.
And you're writing the scripts yourself? Is there a team of people?
I write them myself, but they also get approved by a team of people, by the producers.
Everyone's poking and...
And then the radio show is a little bit different because I curate all of the music for it. So I get a little bit more latitude in what gets presented. It's a really tiny team. It's just me and one other producer, and that's kind of awesome as well.
Powerhouse team of two.
Yeah. He's awesome. His name is Pete Morey, and he is obsessed with Marvin Gaye, which makes us a great unit. He has all the Motown stories.
Yeah.
So, that is really fun because because I'm also married to a DJ, I know a little bit about...
Congratulations, you got married, I think, this year.
Last year.
Last year, congratulations.
Yeah.
It was great.
Thank you.
Looks beautiful.
So over the years of just watching him work, I learned about how a DJ guides a listener on a musical journey, and that can be like an emotional journey as well too. So the worst DJs are the ones that don't recognize that.
They're back to the audience. They're doing what they're doing.
They're just disrupting the flow. Like you're in the middle.
Yo, we were in that too.
Yeah,
like, why are you dropping?
So I've learned a lot from him.
Yeah.
And the way that I try to shape the radio show is taking the listener on a journey. And that's kind of how we present it every week. And all of the music that we present comes with stories. There's stories to give context and life to the music. And I do the show assuming that most of my listeners are not hardcore R&B fans, although I'm sure there are some. But I like to look at the show as kind of like my evangelical movement of like converting Canada into an R&B nation. So
I love the quiet power, the chipping away. It's like, listen, I'm going to show you a little something here for a minute.
I know y'all love your folk and your rock, but I'm about to insert some R&B in here.
Put a little something in it. Try this on for size. See how that fits,
And it's a huge, amazing thing to be the host of a national R&B show. And so I want to take that responsibility really seriously. And part of it is, giving the listener a little bit of context as to what is about to come. This isn't just a song. This is a song by an artist who might have a really incredible story, or the song itself has a story, or the impact of that song, or even my personal relationship to the music. Yeah. So, and then the column finally is the space of maybe the most freedom, because I get to write about whatever is on my mind for the particular week that still is in line with the mandate of CBC Arts.
Right.
So I've utilized a lot of that space to do something that I'm really passionate about, which is excavating some of the stories that get forgotten amongst the artistic and creative narratives of Canada. Mm-hmm. So that could be contemporary artists that are doing work that don't get included in like mainstream galleries, or it could be artists and creatives that did work a long time ago and we've kind of forgotten about what it is that they did and how they helped set the stage for what's currently going on. And my editor is really amazing. I've had a few different editors over the time that I've been doing it. They've all been really encouraging and really given me the space to explore a lot of those topics. Obviously the editing process can be sometimes really frustrating.
A little challenging.
A little challenging. Yeah, no, they've been really, like, the whole department has been really awesome about encouraging me to keep going forward with those stories. So I feel really lucky right now because I think that a lot of the work that I was doing in a grassroots way is finding various channels at the CBC and is being able to access communities and audiences that I would never have had access to if I wasn't here.
Yeah, it's this continual sort of note in your life of translation from university to kids who are 11, from R&B to Canada, and really telling those stories. I know I went to school in Windsor, University of Windsor, right next to Detroit. Spent a lot of time in Detroit.
Yes, me too, at Windsor.
So everyone's like, yo, I'm going to America. And the stories and experiences that I had there transformed my life in terms of who I am, things I believe. Crazy 2-second story. I was in a bar in Detroit one night, and Stevie Wonder walks in to have dinner. Mm-hmm. Half an hour later, Prince walks in. Like, this place holds 80 people. And they both come in. There's a live jazz band. They're playing Stevie Wonder song, Prince tune, and they're going back and forth. They change up their whole set. And all of a sudden, Stevie Wonder and Prince get up and say, hey, we want to sit in on the band.
Oh, my God.
And then they jam for like an hour.
Sounds like
Prince,
a dream.
Like, I'm standing 4 feet. I could reach out and slap Prince on his forehead. Like, I am this close. And they sit there and they start playing the guitar and the piano and they start dropping tunes. And I was just like, oh my God, this is never going to happen again. Like, this is just like And that type of stuff happened all the time in Detroit, home of Motown. Like, there's so much history and culture in that place. Like, I have a very fond place in my heart for anything Detroit. Even if people hate it, I love Detroit. So, back to what we're talking about.
That's awesome.
What was your first job?
It was at a call center. I was a telemarketer.
What did you sell?
It wasn't selling, it was surveys. So, like consumer surveys. And it was an interesting space because it was a place where a lot of teenagers have their first jobs, but it's also a place where a lot of folks have careers. Like they stay there for a long time. So there was a bit of tension between, those of us that would just kind of flounced in.
Showing up for the summer. And then
my first job.
Yeah.
Took it not that seriously, and those that really did. But it was a really good first job, I think. Like it was, I don't know, there are so many stories amongst the people that were there. A lot of new immigrants, a lot of older folks, and then a lot of students from all over. And we had like freestyling ciphers on break time. Like there are people that I later on found out were part of like really cool hip hop crews in Toronto that were working there. Yeah. And so anyway, it was a cool, relatively cool. And then I went into like retail jobs and stuff, like Athlete's World and Aldo and those type of things.
The Foot Lockers of the world and all of that good stuff. What did you want to be when you grew up?
That changed a number of times. The first thing that I wanted to be was a writer. Because I was such a huge book nerd, I just wanted to write stories, and I would write these little short stories about time travel. And then a family member who I believe said it with the best of intentions, but kind of traumatized was like, why do you want to be a writer? Do you want to be poor? Don't you want to take care of your mom? Like, you're going to broke forever. And that, like, it was like he etched it in stone into my brain.
Yeah.
And so, my major goal in life was to always take care of my mom. And I just, if that wasn't going to do it, like this family member who I really looked up to said it wasn't going to do it, then I had to dash away that dream. And I was like, what makes money? I was like, a banker? Okay, I'll be a banker. So those are all the sort of kid stuff. And, for a while played around with the idea of journalism because I was into Nancy Drew stories. I liked the idea of investigating and things like that. But when I went to university, the goal was to go to law school and be a lawyer. That was the intention. Clearly, that didn't happen.
Well, I'm glad that didn't happen because the world wouldn't have all of the amazing things that you bring to it.
And I think somewhere in the middle there between wanting to be a writer and being a banker, I also wanted to be Oprah.
Oh.
Yeah. I think Oprah's show premiered.
If she falls off, say, I got this. I'm just going to jump in.
Her show premiered either like the year I was born or the year before, the year after, like somewhere in that bracket.
Yeah.
And so she was on TV every day for my whole life, basically, until she decided to end the Oprah show. Wow. So just imagine like your whole life, you grew up seeing this woman. And my mom used to tell me she was my aunt. Like she used to say, that's Auntie Oprah. And I didn't understand that was like not literal for a really long time.
It's like you take that and you're like, okay. It's
Auntie Oprah. Like still in my head, it's Auntie Oprah and Uncle Denzel. That's how I refer to them. So for a long time, I wanted to be like Auntie Oprah.
Do you have anybody else in your life that was an uncle or an auntie?
There was another, a lot of it is through television, right? So there was another person who's on UK television. He's a very famous news anchor named Trevor McDonald. He's from Trinidad or Jamaica? I can't remember exactly where he's from. But he's one of the most famous news anchors in England, and he's a black man, so it was a big deal. And I remember my mom used to work for this place called the Commonwealth Institute.
Yeah.
And they had a visit from the Queen, and they needed like little kids to give her flowers. So I was one of the little kids that they brought in to do it, and I was really excited. You're off school to meet the Queen. And I had my little flowers, and then Trevor McDonald came in, and I was like, oh my God. And I completely left where I was supposed to be, greeting the Queen, and ran over, and I was like,
that's Trevor McDonald.
Uncle Trevor McDonald. I love you. I see you all the time. I think I might have given him the flowers. Like I completely forgot about the Queen, and it was all about Trevor McDonald.
That is fresh. I'm sure he wasn't expecting that. He's like, the Queen is here, we're doing stuff, and you're like,
I don't even know if he like acknowledged my existence.
The
but
Queen shows up and she's like, do you know who Trevor is? Like, have you
it's Trevor. Yeah. So
That's hilarious. What was that class you took at university?
Cultures of Resistance in the Americas. One of the most incredible classes ever. Anybody that goes to York and is taking like the sort of arts and sciences, anything in the arts and sciences, you have to do a mandatory humanities credit. And so that fits under that. It could be one of them. So everybody that I know that goes to York and has to do is doing a major in the arts and sciences, I'm like, take that class. I've recommended it to literally hundreds of people, and no one has ever said anything disparaging about it. Everyone speaks so highly of it. It's an incredible, incredible class.
Tell me about that class.
So the incredible thing about it is that it re-taught me the history of, first of all, I even created this concept of the Americas for me, because in my head, America was one place, the United States of America. But this class is like, no, there's such a thing as the Americas, which includes Latin America, the Caribbean, and North America. South America, Central America, the Caribbean, North America are all the Americas, this Western Hemisphere that was shaped heavily through colonization. And because it was shaped through conquest and colonization, in the midst of all of that oppression, that genocide, that slavery, all of those things that came out of it, also came a culture of resistance. And that culture has spawned many different things. Language, art, writing, like the strategies of organizing, all of these things have come out of this culture of resistance. So the literature that I was exposed to, like that was where I was introduced to Bell Hooks and Dion Brand, Nalo Hopkinson and Stuart Hall, and all of these theorists that have really helped to, Audre Lorde, like have helped to hammer down my own personal politic, were introduced to me in that class.
Did you have any sort of experience or understanding of that world of resistance prior to taking that class?
A little bit. I mean, I definitely have to give credit to my family. My aunt and uncle, when I was little, were going through their Afrocentric phase. So they used to take
Afro pics and
full dashiki outfits and all sorts of stuff. So they used to take me and my cousins to different like cultural events in London, England. And I always remember them taking us to like Spike Lee movies in Brixton and, you know, different things like that. So I think that was a part of, and they were, like my uncles were very much involved in the anti-apartheid movements in London. And so listening to family conversations about politics was always, I think subconsciously, even though I had no idea what they were talking about, that reverberated in my mind. And then in high school, I was really lucky to go to a school that had a Black history course. So the generation sort of before me had protested and petitioned to have a Black history course created in the school, and the school agreed but refused to put any money into it.
Oh, of course. So you can have it. Let's figure it out.
So because there were no sort of Black teachers at the school qualified to teach the Black history course, it was taught by a white teacher named Mrs. Perkins Ball, who was incredible, and to her credit, taught her a ton of stuff in order to be able, and I will always be thankful to her for being the only teacher that I've ever had that started this conversation of quote unquote Black history, not at slavery, but at pre-colonial Africa, and taught us about the kingdoms and taught us about all of the different societies and ways of life that existed there beforehand. So she taught this incredibly ambitious course that started in pre-colonial Africa and ends in like 1970s resistance movements.
Wow.
And we read the collection of slave narratives that Henry Louis Gates Jr. Put together. We read Malcolm X and Martin Luther King Jr. We read a lot of, I think I was introduced to like Eldridge Cleaver through that class. And it was, I think the summer before I took it, I had also read the autobiography of Malcolm X. And it's
required reading if you want to resist.
And I think that I was so inspired by it that like every book that he said that he wrote, like I would look it up and try to read it as well too. And I also tried to write the entire dictionary like he did in prison. I always remember start with aardvark.
A is for art. Let's start.
I never finished it, but I don't even know if I ever, in all the times that I tried, got past the letter A. But
it's a dictionary. It's like every
humongous. But it was. So there were a few things that had sort of sparked the interest beforehand. And when I was in high school and taking that course, I decided to write I'm also ambitiously decided to write an adaptation, a theatrical adaptation of one of the slave narratives, Incidents in the Life of a Slave Girl by Harriet Jacobs. Mm-hmm. It's terrible, and no one will ever see it again. But I think just that
Instagram didn't exist.
yeah, definitely. But I think just the level of engagement that I was so inspired by the story that I wanted to adapt it was an indicator that this was going to be like the idea of discovering history and uncovering archives and making them accessible for folks has been something that's been a part of my life ever since.
What is it like as an educated, deeply knowledgeable, proud Black woman in North America doing the work that you do in the spaces that you're doing the work in? What is...
can you be more specific? Like...
As somebody who has the understanding you have about your own personal history, being Black, African, traveled the world, lived in different countries, and working in spaces that people, like a CBC, where it's not traditionally Afrocentric or dealing with R&B, how do you reconcile and deal with and navigate those waters as somebody who has that deep understanding and I'm sure facing resistance?
Well,
just as a normal part of your day.
Yeah, well, I would say that I think before I got here, there have been a lot of people that were here before me that helped to lay certain foundations that have made my job not so hard.
Right.
So, I think about some of the folks that are still in the building and some of the folks that have come and gone that have had to introduce things like equity, like anti-oppression, like what's it called? What's the new catchphrase? Like non-intentional bias. What's the actual term? Anyways, all of these, of these
unintended
things,
bias or something.
Yeah,
like this.
it's escaping me right now. But there have been a lot of people that have helped to start those conversations and lay the foundations that when I got here, because I didn't get here, I got here by teaching, by being hired through the CBC, through collaboration with Manifesto, to help facilitate a diversity program. So that's literally how I came into the building. And then through that met different folks who thought of me for the opportunities that I have now. But I came in sort of already waving my little flag as the facilitator of the diversity program. And I came in as a grown woman who already had a ton of work experience and a background and a context, so that when they hired me, they kind of knew who they were getting.
Right.
And as they got to know me, learned more. And I think
they loved you even more. It was awesome.
Well, I think that they have a sense of, I came into the building and I feel sometimes, I wish that I started here younger, because television is a very ageist world. But I'm really proud that I'm here at this point because all of the experiences that I've had that led me to this place mean that I come into the building with a really strong sense of purpose. Right. And I know why I'm here and what I want to do here. Whereas if I came at 21, I probably wouldn't have that sense in the same way that I do right now. And I think that the people that I'm lucky enough to work with, because they sort of did their research before they hired me, had a strong sense of what I was going to come with
what
as
you're
well.
Going to add to the table, and
So, I can't speak about the entire corporation because, it's massive. Yeah. But the departments that I've been working in have been really supportive. I think there's the day-to-day educating that sometimes has to happen. And my mom has been a really good check on me around the privilege that I hold as somebody who got to go to school and learn about all of these different things and spend time, being very theoretical about what these things mean and philosophical and all the stuff. And she's like, there's a lot of people that never got that opportunity and you have to be patient with them. That changes depending on who we're talking about, like what battles I choose to pick and all that sort of stuff. But I think also being an educator now, being somebody who's in media, I think part of my job is to sort of open the door to new conversations and dialogues. Yeah. So, I mean, I'm not going to act as though it's perfect, and I definitely want to learn from the challenges and successes that people before me have had within the space. But I also need to carve my own sort of path as well, too.
Awesome.
So thus far, my path has not been that challenging. And I think the years of doing community organizing and grassroots community organizing and believing that we were going to create something very different and then figuring out how difficult that truly was and replicating some of the oppressive things that you see in major corporations because we didn't know how to do things differently has made me a lot more understanding and patient, or maybe those are the wrong words, but has made me a lot more thorough in my thinking about the really difficult day-to-day process that is required to be truly like an anti-oppressive, anti-racist organization.
Right. Yeah.
But I'm so lucky. Like my boss right now is like amazing. She's so supportive and like really leads from a place of support and wanting to learn and understand, and both of my bosses, I should say. So I think that every time people ask me what is it like to work at CBC, I'm like, I'm kind of in a bubble. And I really like awesome. My bubble. Yeah. I don't know. I speaking to other folks in the building, I don't think that everybody has this experience. But the experience that I'm having right now, I literally, what I told you in a sort of jest before we began the interview, I literally said, like, I told them, I am hungry. Please feed me, and I will bring what I have to the table as well too. So that's why I can come to work in all my
why not
that I would wear and not feel any way about it.
Yeah. That's so good. That's so good. I'm glad to see that experience is being fostered and created and grows, because the existence of it makes room for so much more with other people. So thank you for doing that and being who you are. I know we're tight on time today. Let us jump into the questions. So I have some questions I want to ask. It can be a choice, like up or down. There is no right answer. You just pick one. Okay. Sometimes it's finishing a sentence. Like today I had blank for breakfast. Fill in the blank. They're fun, interesting. Everybody brings their life to it. So
okay, cool.
These are it's a list of over 300 questions that I have, and I'm probably going to ask you like 8.
Okay, I was like, 300.
And so here we go. Learn or teach?
Learn.
25 or 35?
35. I don't know.
Cell phone or home phone?
Cell phone.
Manicure or pedicure?
Pedicure.
Couch potato or hot tamale?
These days, a couch potato.
Godfather or godmother?
Well, if we're talking movies, Godfather.
You bring whatever you want to it. There is no right answer. Fold or pile?
Fold.
Moonlight or sunshine?
Moonlight.
Noon or midnight?
Midnight.
Condo or house?
House.
Condo or cottage?
Condo. City girls. Concrete jungle person.
Salt or pepper?
Pepper.
Tupac or Biggie?
Pac.
You didn't have to think about that one.
We actually used to, like when I worked at Los Angeles, that used to be one of our like questions in a job interview, and we would judge people on the basis of their answer.
It's like, you're Biggie. Bye-bye. Thank you. This interview is over.
Not saying that's what we did, but...
But you would ask the question. You knew the answer before we started. Coke or Pepsi?
Coke. Not Pepsi these days.
Soca or Calypso?
The intellectual in me chooses Calypso. The party in me chooses Soca.
Donuts or Timbits?
Timbits.
Football or soccer?
Soccer. But Actually, if we're talking language, football forever. Stupid North America. So when I say football, not American football.
Kink or straight?
Kink. But either way you want it.
You bring what you want to the questions. These are completely random. New York or LA?
New York. New York. New York.
What did you have for breakfast?
I haven't eaten breakfast.
And it's minutes to 12.
I know. It's so long.
What did you learn from your current relationship?
I am learning. I am learning what day-to-day appreciation looks like.
I will know I'm successful when...
That's a great question. I will know I am successful when my mom doesn't have to work anymore.
If money were no object, I would...
If money were no object, I would create as much content as I could for the screen.
Have you ever been fired?
No. Mostly, no, I don't think I have. I hope I don't have to feel that experience anytime soon.
Have you ever quit?
Yes.
What's your favorite color?
Purple.
Everyone can count on me to...
Have big hair.
Ladies and gentlemen, Amanda Parris. Thank you so much for joining us.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. How can people get in touch with you, find out about your shows? Where can they follow? Where can they join, connect?
So definitely check out CBC Arts. It's where my column is. It's where the links to the episodes of Exhibitionists are. cbc.ca/arts is the website, and at CBC Arts for all the different social media handles. For Marvins Room, at Marvins Room CBC on Twitter. We love hearing from people. It's so fun to hear people's thoughts about the show. And then for me personally, you can get at me on Twitter at what's my thing? Amanda_Parris. Yeah, Amanda_Parris. Yeah, that's what it is.
Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for sharing and being with us and sharing with us a bit about how you bring creativity to life.
Thank you.